started. We are so excited to hear today from Earl W Edwards. Earl, you'll have to tell us what your W is for.
Well, I like to tell people that it stands for wise,
Ah,
but
wise, not Wiley. All right, very good. Anyway, so Earl W. Edwards accepted the position of Director of Athletics at UC San Diego in March 2000. Since his arrival here, UC San Diego has consistently been recognized nationally for its academic and athletic achievements, and in just 2 decades, has risen from the NCAA Division III to Division II, and this summer, Division I. Edwards has built several new facilities and enhanced others during his tenure, and served on many national and regional committees and organizations throughout his career. Edwards previously served as the NACDA Division II Board of Directors, the Minority Opportunities Athletic Association Board of Directors, the National Association of Athletic Development Directors, and now serves as chair of the Big West Conference's Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion. In addition to working as athletic director at Stroudsburg University and UC San Diego, he has athletics administration experience at the University of Massachusetts, UC Davis, University of Michigan, and Drexel University. A 1972 graduate of East Stroudsburg, Edwards earned a bachelor's degree in physical education and went on to receive a master's in sports administration from the University of Massachusetts in 1973. We are so excited to hear from Earl W. Edwards about UCSD's move to Division I. Go ahead and take it away, Earl.
well, thank you very much. Do I have any time left after that?
You got a bit. You got a bit.
I appreciate that, and can't tell you how excited I am to talk to this group. There's a number of things I want to cover, but before I do that, I want to share with everyone that Danielle Melman is on this call. She's my associate AD for external engagement and marketing, and she'll share some things with you as we move forward. It's extremely exciting to see a number of faces that I haven't seen in quite some time. And, Mae Brown in particular, we had a very close relationship because, as you can imagine, working in athletics, admissions is a big part of who we are and what we do. And I'm pleased to say that Mae would allow any student that I wanted to come to UCC. No, that's not true. No, if there's, it's really just, it's the opposite in the
Let
sense.
me publicly say that was not true. We had many battles, as you know.
Yeah, the real truth is Mae was one that was very much by the books and the rules. I never asked her to do anything outside of that because, one, that's not how I am, but two, I knew the answer that I would get from Mae. So the bottom line, it's great to see all of you. Thank you for allowing me this opportunity to talk to you as a group, because well, you may be retired, you're still a very important part of UC San Diego in terms of the foundation, who we are and where we're going. So I want to thank all of you for that. I thought what I'd do, rather than just jump right into Division I and the transition, I take this opportunity to talk to you as a group a little bit more about athletics, our philosophy, who we are, some of the things we're doing, and then we'll move into the D1 transition aspect. And the first thing I'd like to espouse to all of you is that there's two overarching philosophies that we use when we look at athletics, and I want to share with you. And that is, I or we in athletics really look at athletics as the laboratory for personal development. And what I mean by that, when you look at the 5 to 600 athletes that we're engaged in, we do a lot to help them with their personal development. One is the obvious in that just participating in sports, there's a lot of things they learn that helps them later on in life, whether it's time management, how to be part of a team, how to set goals, how to deal with victory, how to deal with defeat, how to work within a diverse environment. So there's a lot of things that athletes learn as a part of being a participant in sports. In fact, those things are so recognized that many Fortune 500 companies actually seek out athletes because of these things I just shared with you. But to go a step further, we are probably the only unit on our campus, or any campus for that matter, that has a 4 or 5 intimate relationship with their athletes from the time we recruit them in high school to the time that they graduate, the 20 hours or so that we spend with them each week creates an intimacy that's very different from any other unit, the relationship with the coach, the supervisors, and administrators. So I really feel that that's another aspect that people take for granted. And then if we look at some of the things we do outside of sports, such as 2 or 3 leadership workshops that we have for each of our athletes that they want to take advantage of that. We work with our athletes when it comes to career development and resumes. And essentially, we end up being, especially the coaches, somewhat surrogate parents, guidance counselors, advice that the students seek from our coaches. So that's why I like to say that we're a laboratory for development when we look at those things that we do for the 5 to 600 scholar athletes in our program. And if you notice, I say scholar athletes when we talk about our athletes here at UCSD, because our focus, number one priority, is on academics. I'm pleased to say that our scholar athletes' average GPA is comparable to the general student population, which is slightly over 3.0. So we always talk about our athletes as far as being scholar athletes. The next thing I'd like to share with each of you, and I hope this is a real takeaway for all of you, because it's something that we struggle with or we battle with in terms of trying to educate individuals about intercollegiate athletics. And I'd like to share with you that we look at athletics as more than just games and competition. I've already illustrated one aspect that's not involving competition, and that's this idea of a laboratory for personal development. But if we look at why we actually moved to Division I, those things clearly are not related to games and competition. I'll just share 5 of those things with you. The first thing is there's no question that intercollegiate athletics on the campus has the ability to unify the campus, create some school spirit, unlike any other unit on our campus. I particularly believe that it's even more important on our campus when you factor in the fact that we have 9 or 10 cultures. I'm not sure on what the numbers are now, only because we keep adding colleges. But when you look at the college system, which is somewhat of a separate entity within the campus itself, and then when you look at the fact that we have a medical center, a Scripps Institute, and the main campus, you've got a minimum of 8 or 9 very distinct cultures that don't really interact with each other that much. So thus, it's a major role that athletics plays to bring everybody together to cheer on our scholar athletes and create a unifying environment. The other aspect of moving to Division One is that it will significantly enhance the branding of UC San Diego. The idea of who we are, which we all know, it's a great university, not only a great university, it's one of the top universities in the world, but candidly, a lot of people don't really know about UC San Diego. We can help with that recognition by the branding that we'll provide by being exposed nationally on national TV. And we'll talk about that a little later. But we are on ESPN3 now. So the branding of the university is quite significant. You know, as I stated, that a lot of people don't know much about UC San Diego. That's changing as we speak. It's actually one of the pluses if you want to look at anything that's plus or a positive during this environment. And that is with the pandemic and the national and global exposure that we are receiving currently, the university is going to be recognized a lot more than it has been in the past. And that's already taken place. And that will also help me or help us from an athletic standpoint as we go out there and tell our story and we're recruiting. More people are going to know about us as a result of this unfortunate pandemic. The other thing that athletics does is that it connects to the community. It engages the community in a way that there's a lot more involvement by the individuals coming to our campus to watch us compete or just watching us on national TV. And I think all of you would agree, especially since you've been here for a while, that that's another area that's we need to address at UC San Diego, and that is the connection with La Jolla and the local community. And that's a situation where we don't really have a real good connection. Athletics can do that. The other thing we are very proud of, and Danielle really does a great job in this arena for us, is that by moving to Division One, there'll be a significant increase in alumni engagement and connection to the university. We've already experienced this as we were moving up to Division One and talking to alumni throughout the country, the excitement about moving to Division One, and the fact again that our brand will be out there through sports. And one of the things I keep referring to TV, one of the things we will do as we play on national TV is to take those opportunities to tell the story about UC San Diego in terms of being a world-class university, the number 2 college in the country when it comes to number of applicants that apply to colleges. And I'm going to share something with you now. I want you to mark this down. You're hearing this first. Earl Edwards is predicting that in the next 5 to 7 years, we will be number 1 when it comes to applicants because we are going to surpass UCLA. You heard that first right here. Mark my words, when it occurs, I actually feel pretty good about my predictions because I did say this way back in March that as far as the branding of our university, the pandemic is going to put us in a very different place, and it certainly has and will continue. And then the last thing I'll just mention, the university athletics pretty much any department on a college campus, financial resources is something that's critical to our survival and who we are and what we do. And there's research out there as well as practical experiences that donor contributions to the university, it's not uncommon for those to increase if you have a Division I program. And I'll just share with you a little teaser. I don't know when we're going to let it out there or let the campus know, but we've already experienced some major donations to our program. And when I say major donations, I'm talking about 7-figure gifts since we've moved to Division I. And when I say since we've moved, officially we've only been Division I since July 1. So that just reinforces what I've stated about donor solicitation or engagement with the campus. The next thing I'd like to mention, and just so you have a sense of where I'm going, I'm going to try to wrap up my comments probably in the next 20 minutes or so to allow you for questions. But the next thing I want to share with you as far as the UC San Diego athletic department is that we have made a commitment as a department to focus on social injustice and racism within our society. And we're doing that in a pretty large, impactful scale. And I don't want to spend a lot of time in this area, but we've created a committee consisting of our coaches and staff and looking at adding students to it that are focusing on racism and social injustice, developing programs for our scholar athletes, having our coaches and staff go through implicit bias training. There's a plethora of things that we're doing, but I just wanted to share with you that that's a focus and a commitment for us, not only as the athletic department, but also to serve as leaders on our campus in terms of what we all can do to help address racism and social injustice. And I'm certain that there's no question with those of you that are listening here that this is a time more so, no, I won't say than ever, but this is a time where we desperately need to address those issues and truly to create an environment that's inclusive. And we're addressing racism and social injustice as a part of one of our core values as an athletic department, which is inclusion. And I should also mention that while we talk about racism, we're saying that within the context of recognizing that all forms of discrimination is not acceptable in our department. So I mentioned inclusion as a core value. The remaining 4 other core values that we have a total of 5, are excellence, striving for excellence, integrity, always acting in an honest and ethical manner, innovation, we inspire creativity and distinction by challenging the process within athletics, and we're doing a number of things that's innovative currently. And our last core value is resilience. And without question, out of all of those 5 core values, the 2 that's been put to the test currently are inclusion and resilience. Clearly, the resilience aspect comes into play when we look at what's happening with UC San Diego athletics and other programs throughout the country, and that is the impact that the COVID-19 has had on our program, where we've had to cancel sport competition on fall sports. All of those teams are not competing this year as far as competing for NCAA championships. Our athletes are being tested at a much higher rate than the general student population, particularly looking at those sports that are competing and practicing currently, men's and women's basketball. Those individuals are tested 3 times a week. And also, when we look at the impact that on our scholar athletes and staff, and I'll throw in here myself included, in terms of the passing of individuals as a result of COVID-19 and what it does for us as individuals. On a personal front, I've lost my sister to COVID-19 back in April. So the reality is the pandemic is hitting us in a lot of different ways. And I'm pleased to say, as far as my athletes and the coaches, they've responded well to the virtual environment, complying with the protocols that have been set forth for all of us. But it has significantly challenged one of our core values, and that's the one of resilience. The other thing I will say is that when it comes to competition, as we move to Division One, we're in an environment now where no fans are allowed to be in our facilities. So when you watch us compete on ESPN3, you won't see any fans in the stands as a result of trying to minimize the spread. So I'm going to shift here a little bit more just to make sure that everyone knows where we are and understands what the Big West Conference is, the teams involved. So essentially, there's 11 schools in our conference, 5 UCs, Davis, Santa Barbara, Irvine, Riverside, and us. 5 state schools, Long Beach, Fullerton, Northridge, Cal Poly, and Bakersfield. And the outlier in terms of geography is the University of Hawaii. And I'll just share with you, if we're going to have an outlier, having Hawaii is not a bad one because we have to travel to Hawaii. That's a tough assignment for us as an athletic program. So what I'd like to do now is I've made reference to several times ESPN3, but I also would like to, because that's one way to engage with our students, but I'd like to have Danielle share with you a number of things that we are doing to stay connected with our students. And again, this connection reinforces what I said earlier, that we're more than games and competition, in that I think you would all agree to have 10,000 students on our campus that are pretty much isolated because of the lack of things that they can do, that athletics is filling a major role for those students and staff in terms of being connected to the university. So I'll turn that over to Danielle to talk about those things. And also, Danielle, if you can, I think I saw you share the information about ESPN3, but if there's anything else you can add to that, please do.
Absolutely. Thank you, Earl. Good afternoon, everyone. So obviously, up until this point, as it relates to engaging with students, we relied heavily on live events, in particular basketball, volleyball, and soccer and water polo. So overseeing marketing over the summer, I got together with my team and I said, it is imperative that we keep the engagement that we continue the engagement with the students. We just have to figure out how to do it in a different way. So by partnering with different units on campus, such as AS, such as housing and dining, and Price Center University events, we were able to execute a number of different programs during the fall, and that I'll share with you, and what we were doing right now in the winter. In the fall, we were able to execute a weekly coffee chat by students for students. Triton Tide, which is our athletic student engagement affinity group, partnered with AS to have weekly conversations on a variety of different topics, kind of what was hot during that week, whether it be social justice, whether it be athletics. But it was wonderful to see the students come together in a virtual forum for a space to talk and communicate. As we moved into winter quarter and the utilization of ESPN3, we are executing a Friday Fan Fest concept virtually right now for students off campus and on campus. Currently, we can't do anything in person, but in the virtual setting, we are doing a 4 p.m. Friday, all students welcome Zoom gathering where they get to meet other Scholar athletes. They play trivia games. We teach them how to watch the games on ESPN3. In addition, with our housing and dining partnership, if you are living on campus, you have the opportunity to order a Triton Pride meal, and there are loyalty points in accordance with it. And so by the end of basketball season, if, for example, if Earl Edwards ordered his Triton Pride meal every Friday and was the #1 person with the loyalty points, he will receive a nice gift prize from athletics. When we are able to be on campus, hopefully in the next couple of weeks, we will have students, Triton Tide students, out at the 5 main eating commons to connect with the students, to communicate about Triton Tide, an affinity group they can be a part of, and to also promote watching ESPN3 and basketball games with their roommates in their dorm. So those are just a few examples of what we've done to engage the students in a very different way than what we're used to, but it's been really wonderful so far.
Thank you, Danielle. And just as an FYI, our women's basketball team a week or so ago defeated Cal Poly. I believe the score was 63-71. Somehow that sticks in my head. But the reason I recall that was our first basketball victory as a D1 program, and it was only our second contest. In fact, we played Cal Poly the night before and lost by 15, and then turned around and beat them the next day. So I'm going to end it here with just a general comment about one, how much I appreciate the support that's provided by many of our retired faculty and staff. I want to share with you some ways that you can support us or continue to support us. Once we get back to live competition with fans, which we are hoping with the vaccine that we'll be back to some normalcy by next fall. Attending games is a tremendous way to support our students, our scholar athletes. If you have some things that you're engaged in that you would like to potentially mentor some of our athletes in whatever specialty that you might have, we'd like to have you reach out to Danielle and share with us what those possibilities might be. If you would like to speak to our athletes about something that you're engaged in or some project that you think our scholar athletes might want to participate in, feel free to talk to Danielle as well. And last but not least, our top priority when it comes to finances and supporting our athletes is scholarships. So if you have the wherewithal or you want to provide us with scholarships, which we could have named after you and share that information with the athlete that's receiving it, so there's some kind of relationship there. That's another way that you can support us. So I'm going to stop there and open it up for any questions that you might have and see if Danielle and I can answer those questions. I really enjoyed talking to all of you, and I'm not sure if I did this, but I don't think when I mentioned the social justice and the racism focus that we have in our department, that I've been engaged probably for the last, well, probably since June, the last 6 months or so, speaking to various groups throughout the country about racism and social injustice and my involvement. And I've been doing that on a local scale just to share with you locally. I've spoken to the La Jolla Beach and Parks Board, the La Jolla Historical Society, the La Jolla Rotary Group, and I've also spoken to a number of other more athletically related groups. My point here is if you as a group would like me to come back and just talk about that aspect, I'd be more than happy to do it. It's a combination of my experiences as a Black person in America, the challenges of talking about race, and providing some recommendations on what things we shouldn't do and encourage individuals to do their part to fight racism. So I'd be more than happy to do that either with this group or if you as individuals, if you're involved in other groups that you think it would be worthwhile, I'd be more than happy to do that. That's become a personal mission of mine ever since the murder of George Floyd, and I'm really enjoying doing that. So again, this is it. My staff knows the Earl Edwards way is to say, and the last thing, and I'll say, and the last thing, it's 5 last things.
All right. Well, Earl, we can't thank you enough. This has been a fabulous presentation, and thank you so much, Danielle, for adding to it. But we really laud you for everything you're doing. It's really fabulous. And we will open up to questions. We have a first question from member Ron Campnell. Go ahead, Ron.
Hi, Earl.
Ron, and thank you for your tremendous support. You know, that list I just ran over the things you can do. Ron pretty much checks every box. So thank you for your support, Ron.
Yeah, I got to know Earl because I was a staff representative years ago for the committee that oversees intercollegiate athletics and recreation. And that was a really meaningful committee, I think. I got to meet, I think in terms of just being able to meet other people in athletics. You know, I've always been somewhat of a nut over intercollegiate and professional sports, but also the facilities planning aspect is something you're involved with. Could you dive in a little bit deeper detail about what you're doing to improve the facilities, to elevate the Division I? And then I'll let you talk about that. And then if there's other questions, I'll let other people go first, but I do have another question for you. So.
Thank you, Ron.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. And also, I should share with you that Ron actually has a floor seat for basketball.
Oh, I did.
Yeah, well, you still have it, but moving forward. So that's something else that's changed. And I'm glad you brought up the facility enhancement piece, because if you come to the REMAC Arena, there's been significant improvement, and we're still in the process of doing that. So I'll share some of those things regarding the arena. The skybox has been tremendously enhanced. It's a nice, I like to call sort of a suite area. It's not a place you often see in college athletics unless you happen to be engaged. So thank you. This is why you have your associates and assistants with you. They just jump in. So she's showing you the arena floor and the seats that we have. The arena itself, the Big West advertising, the conference that we're in. The floor was redone, this past summer. We've got some new seats in there. We have a 15 by 50 video board that allows a lot more interaction and engagement. You can see the video board from afar here with this photo. We're also in a process with the arena of adding some things around the concourse. This shows sort of our Hall of Fame area, but adding some things around the concourse that will show the connection to the university as a whole, whether it's the colleges or activities. We also will continue, as we have over the years, to have a recognition of the Nobel laureates that we have at UC San Diego. Again, emphasizing that academic prowess and connection. And when I talk about, I'm really excited, we haven't gotten there yet, but when I talk about images around the concourse that will represent the university as a whole, these images are going to be done in a way where it's controlled by projectors, something you don't see at a lot of places. So we can enhance or change those images depending on the circumstances. And it will add to what all of us are engaged in now as athletic directors, where we've moved away from just focusing on the games to creating an environment that creates a great experience for the fans and spectators. So we do a lot of things in that arena. If you look at our soccer field.
Oh, Earl.
Yes.
Before you move on to soccer, I don't know if you want to, because I have the picture set up, the new control room downstairs for ESPN3.
Thank you very much.
Let me share my screen and you can briefly talk about it.
No, actually, I'm glad you brought that up, because that made me think of something else. So one of the reasons that we're able to be on ESPN3 is that we have two production studios in our arena. We're the only one in the Big West Conference that can do that. So that's a glimpse of what the control centers look like. And what I like about it, not only does it allow us to be on TV, it allows us to connect with an academic side of the house, meaning communications and film. So students that are interested in those areas that want to get some experience with cameras and videos and all those things, they can do that by being a part of our program. That particular studio, as you can see um, that Danielle popped up there, the studio is named after one of our alums, Dana Chaikin, who provided the funding, a former athlete, for the equipment that we need. And I made reference to connection with the academic side of the house. That's another focus of ours as an athletic department. So we've got the communications department. We have a number of students that'll work with us. I forget the technical letters you guys use, but essentially it's independent study, where we have students that may work in the athletic training room or other areas for independent study. We are working very closely with the data science department. Data science is a major, but with our athletic performance unit, we do a lot of data analytics with our athletes, and we're employing students in data science to work with us. Those are just a couple of examples. So I just want to emphasize that we're not an island by itself. I'm trying to do everything we can to make sure we're integrated with the university on all fronts.
Earl, I wanted to mention I have a mentee through the Maritime Mentor group that I'm working with, who's a member of the PEP band. So I see him, you know, prior to the pandemic, I'd always get together with him during events where they're, you know, performing at athletic contests. So,
so that's the mentor. I told you he checks every box I mentioned. That's the mentor box. Thank you. So I just briefly mentioned the soccer stadium. We put in some new seats in the soccer stadium with the move to Division One. We're in the process of putting in that press box, the yellow box that you saw at the top of the stairs. So that's going to help us with the move to Division One. We obviously haven't been able to utilize that, either the seats or the box with the pandemic. We've upgraded our baseball stadium. We did that a while ago. As far as the press box, we have an outstanding clubhouse. And I just want to mention, if anybody wants to look at our clubhouse, one, to just see it, but if, let's say you as a group want to have a meeting or do something different rather than go to the same place that you always meet, you could potentially meet at our clubhouse, see the field, be out, you know, you're not going to be outdoors, but you'll be in the clubhouse for our baseball team. So I just want to mention that as a possibility. So those are the main things that we've upgraded with the move to D1. We have enhanced the locker rooms for men's and women's basketball. Those enhancements have been quite significant, but I'll be candid. It's still a small locker room. That's our performance center. We built that in 2015. So we have a contingent of strength and conditioning coaches. That building was able to be built with the help of a Spanos family donation.
I've done personal training there. It's a great facility. So,
okay, thanks, Ron. I don't know about you doing personal training. I have to see if that's permissible or not.
they're still looking for you to do sessions with them.
Okay.
They're going to track you down.
Okay. So that's it on the facilities at this time. Thanks, Ron.
Earl, you might mention there was an upgrade within the last few years about the baseball facility. What's the structure that's in right field? I think, is it some kind of?
That's the clubhouse.
That's the clubhouse. Okay, I've seen it when I've gone to baseball games, but I've not actually
Yeah, so
in there. So that's a place, can you buy it? Can anybody attending games buy food there or?
no, that's a clubhouse for the players.
Okay,
So that's basically their space. But as I mentioned a little while ago, if you're looking for a space for a place to meet, you can check with us and see if that's available. So any other questions from the rest of the group?
So are all sports now at UCSD Division I, or which particular ones?
Right,
All across the board.
That's a great question. So the answer is all sports are across the board. So when I say all sports, that's 23 sports that we have,
Wow.
12 men's sports and 11 women's sports. The reason it's 23, there's pretty much a duplication by gender of each sport. You know, baseball, softball, tennis, men's and women's, basketball, men's and women's. The only one that we don't have a duplicate by gender is men's golf. We don't have a women's golf program. The other aspect of moving to Division I, while I talked about the schools in our conference, those will be the predominant schools we play within the Big West Conference, but some of our sports are actually in a different conference. Swimming currently, water polo. The other thing I should mention is that with us being now Division I, and I'm excited to be in the Big West because of the synergy and it makes sense, but it'll give us a lot of opportunities to compete against San Diego State and USD. So now we have, I like to say we have a trifecta of Division I schools in the community, and I think that's going to do a lot for the San Diego community in terms of the rivalries and recognitions of the schools, and the fact that each school is significantly different. You know, you got USD, the private, you got the state school, we know how the state school operates, and we know where we are as a UC. So I know both athletic directors quite well. So we converse periodically about a number of different issues, including competing against each other.
Earl, in that reign, are you making any progress on an all-city basketball tournament? I know that's been discussed, you know, with USD and
Yeah.
ESU and maybe Point Loma or.
Yeah, and we were actually focusing on a D1 championship, if you will, the three schools. That was my idea a while ago. I'll be candid, I talked to each of the ADs, and neither one of them were jumping up about that idea. The idea of playing each other was fine, but the idea of someone being recognized for having the best overall success in several.
They didn't like that.
Yeah. And I think you could guess potentially why that is, but we will compete with them in most of our sports on a regular basis, which is fine.
Earl, can you tell me, do your student athletes get scholarships?
Yes, that's another great question. So one of the moves to Division I is we do provide scholarships, and the way the scholarships work is that within the Big West Conference, there's 7 sports that you have to provide at least 80% of what's permissible as far as scholarship dollars for that sport. And hopefully I can name them, but it's men's and women's basketball, men's and women's soccer, softball, baseball, women's volleyball. So you have to give at least 80%. We've decided to give 100% of whatever is allowable for scholarships in those sports to our athletes. And we've added to those 7 sports, men's volleyball, as far as maximizing scholarships, and
The water polos, men's and women's water polo.
Men's and women's water polo, because those sports we've already been competing at Division I without scholarships, and it's our feeling with scholarships, we can compete and be even more successful. So those scholarship levels that I talked about too, you know, the 15 scholarships permissible for men's and women's basketball, that number is the same whether you're at UCLA or Stanford. So we're on par with those schools when it comes to scholarships. Great question.
And as a follow-on to that, are you recruiting top scholar athletes coming in?
Yeah, without question, we're recruiting scholar athletes that meet our academic requirements. The one thing that people don't know, even though we've been Division II for the last 20 years, we've always been recruiting against Division I schools.
Oh, wow.
We've always been recruiting against the Stanfords, the Michigans, the Ivy Leagues in particular, you know, because those are the caliber of students that we were trying to get. We'll be much more, we have been much more successful already recruiting those athletes because we are D1. And I think May had a question.
Oh, I was going to ask Earl whether any of the other campuses in the Big West are also restricted from playing, or any of them playing any of the sports given the pandemic?
Yeah, it's a good question. So one thing about being in a conference is we try to do most of our business and operations from a conference perspective.
Mhm.
So we decided not to have fall competition, which impacted men's and women's soccer, women's volleyball, and cross country.
Mhm.
That was for all the schools in the Big West Conference.
Mhm.
So none of those schools are competing. The schools are also provide or complying with minimum guidelines that's set forth
Mhm.
primarily by the NCAA. And this may not be exactly accurate, but you'll get my point. So the NCAA has basically mandated that if schools are going to compete, they need to be tested a minimum of 2 times, which is probably what many of our schools are doing in the conference.
Mhm.
We at UC San Diego decided that that's not enough, which is why we're going with 3 times, and that's a reflection of our chancellor Pradeep in terms of wanting to make sure we have as safe an environment as we possibly can.
Mhm.
So it's 3 times a week for us, COVID testing, and 2 times for the rest of the schools.
And do you have a plan for when you expect your athlete scholars will be vaccinated?
I don't mean to laugh. I don't mean to laugh. I'm only laughing because that question about who's being vaccinated and when and what the rules are, uh, we'll just follow whatever the protocols end up being from the county, you know, the CDC requirements, whatever those are, will fall in line. I will say that as far as our athletes are concerned, I'm going to suspect we're going to be more towards the bottom of the line, just in terms of the age of our scholar athletes, and for the most part, being an athlete, there wouldn't be a large number of
Health risk.
athletes that have
Yeah.
some
Yeah.
major underlying health issues. Yeah. So I didn't mean to laugh at the question, because the question's wasn't a funny question, but we just had a discussion this morning. I was on a call about people getting vaccines inappropriately.
Mm.
And when I say inappropriately, there's something out there from the county that says if you're in laboratories, you kind of move to the front of the line. But the laboratory aspect was really meant for hospital employees or people that are working in labs with dangerous or contagious scenarios.
Mhm.
But because of the lack of clarity, we have people working in labs of research in general, or lab, you know what I mean? They just labs, period. And those people have been getting vaccinated. That was not the
Intent.
that was
Yeah.
not the intent.
Yeah.
I'll share something else with you as you talk about this, the vaccine. Our campus has vending machines. I don't know if you're aware of that or not.
Yeah. Yeah.
We have vending machines, which I chuckle at in a good way because they just shows where we are. You know, we got freaking vending machines to get tested. But one of the things, not necessarily us, but I do think there's cases here. One of the things we're discovering is because we have vending machines, some people are taking more
Oh, yeah.
tools at the testing kits out of the vending machines, and believe this or not, then sharing them with relatives or family members, having them use their name to be tested, you know, for the virus. That's unlawful. There's a lot of things that's wrong with that, but that's some of the challenges we're dealing with the vaccine in general.
Earl, I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more about challenges moving to Division I, particularly give us an idea how much you have to elevate the budget and how that is impacting fundraising, like you mentioned. You know, fortunately, you're getting some large donations, but give us an idea of the scope of how much you're having to increase your overall budget and scholarship money to go to Division I.
Well, I'm going to say with the move to Division I as compared to where we were as a Division II program, we've increased our budget probably threefold.
Mm.
Threefold. So, I mean, I'm comfortable with you as a group. So, as a Division II program, we were somewhere between, let's say, roughly around $9 million. We're expecting to be somewhere around 20 or the low 20s with the move to Division I. A lot of that has to do with the scholarship piece in particular, because we're giving out the scholarships. But then, you know, as far as salaries and a bunch of other things. So we've had to increase our budget significantly. We're fortunate that some of our fees comes from student fees. That was part of the referendum. But the challenge that we have with those funds that were voted on back in 2016, and those numbers that we provided in 2016 were probably a year or so old because that's what we had available at that time. So without explaining it to you, you all know that that dollar amount in 2016 versus where we are in 21's not the same. So we need to continue to raise funds, and we've been blessed that, well, at least I say we're blessed. We've been blessed for several years that there's been no tuition increases, but that we know that's going to change. But just to give you an idea, and this may not be exact, but it'll give you an idea. One of the things ADs struggle with is that when tuition goes up, let's say tuition goes up, I don't know, I'll use $200 as a number. Tuition goes up $200, so that can easily translate into an additional $1 million+ that athletics needs to come up with somehow, which is why it's important that we continue to work with donors as well as corporate sponsors. That's another area that's picked up for us with the move to Division I.
How many total student athletes do you
Between
have?
we're somewhere between 500 and 600.
Okay.
So it's a large program. We start off usually around 600 or so. We usually end up around 550. So it's a large program, and that's without football,
Yeah.
which I'll share with you. I'm glad we don't have football. Just because.
One thing I've enjoyed over the years is going to the annual banquet. Last year, because of COVID, it had to be virtual. Do you expect it's going to be virtual again?
Yeah, I would say anything throughout this year is going to be virtual.
Okay.
In fact, everything we're doing is virtual. In fact, I just got off the National NCAA Convention session that's virtual. You know, that's just the way things are right now for everything. Not, and
But you're anticipating being back live next fall?
that's God willing. God willing, when you ask me that question, Susan, I think about when I was in the gym. I was in Remac Arena, March 13th. We've got 8 teams practicing in our arena from all over the West Coast for the basketball tournament. I get a phone call basically saying,
Go home.
go home, the games are over.
Yep.
And at that moment, I personally thought within a few months, we'll be back to normal.
Yeah.
And here we are pretty much
You should have consulted me, Earl, because I said no, that the whole year was shot. So I had a good crystal ball.
All right, well, now that I know that, I will reach out to you on other issues.
All right. Well, I want to thank you so much, Earl and Danielle Melman, for this presentation today. It was really fabulous. I have one last question for you and that is, do you permit us to put this on our YouTube channel? Because we have yes?
Without question, as many YouTubes, podcasts.
Wonderful. Well, we have our own channel, and we find that, we'll have a couple dozen people who will show up the day of the event, but that's because our people are so busy. I'll call a member and they've got 3 other Zoom things going on. But then we go back and we look at our YouTube channel, and we've had hundreds of people who have watched the videos. So there will be lots of other retirees who will be watching you and hearing about everything you've done and built. And I'm so proud of what you've accomplished. So congratulations to you, and with our very best wishes for a successful restart next fall.
And I appreciate it again. And don't forget what I said about speaking to any groups about racism.
I appreciate that.
Just reach out to me. Thank you very much. Look forward
to seeing you. Thank Danielle for helping us get this organized.
Yes.
So really appreciate that, Danielle.
Absolutely. Thank you again for having us.
So some rumor has it, May, are you the president of this group?
She is. She's a head honcho.
Yeah, so you guys are in great hands.
Without Susan, I would be lost. I want you to know.
I've been friends with May for a while. I had to keep telling her year after year, girl, you got to retire. That's mainly because I wanted to line her up to be president. All right. Thank you so much.
Take care.
Thanks, Earl.
Thank you very much.
Nice
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.